leave, please.
Elena, I haven't seen you in years.
Elena,
Hey,
this is my friend.
I left a pile of messages. Maeve, what are you doing here if nothing has changed?
Go that he won't find you. Please. Stay. This is our out.
Yes, so if you guys don't know, in Amazon's the series called The Boys, the relationship between Queen Maeve and her human girlfriend Elena serves as Maeve's core emotional anchor and her primary motivation to take down Homelander. So basically that's the plot of, Maeve's story. Obviously, Elena has a very importance in that as well. But before we break down everything, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know your personal opinion down below in the comments because it does matter. So this couple has a very interesting plot. It's not a new couple, so I will not say it's a new couple, but it is a couple that in The Boys had a very, very mega importance in the success of the show as well. The story definitely contributed a lot to the views and the engagements as well. So me personally, I'm not very into, like sci-fi type of stories and all of that. But recently, I've spoken about the release of The Boys season 5. So, I went and I watched season 5, but actually end up finding out that, their relationship, will not be broadcast anymore on the show because the writers, according to what I read, they feel like their story already had their final closure in season 3 because I was possibly, having hopes that they might make a return in season 5, but that actually end up not happening. But today I'm just here to give you guys the full details of everything that happened between them, just in case you haven't watched, season 1, 2, and 3 where the story is broadcasted. So, just in case you want to go ahead, go watch, go support it as well, so you can go ahead and do so. So Maeve and Elena dated in the past, but their relationship ended when Maeve started seeing Homelander. So in season 1, you can see that, Maeve, she ends up, getting into a situation. She was just drunk and, she was looking for someone to speak to. So she actually ends up knocking at Elena's door. Obviously, Elena ends up opening the door, and you can just see that moment right there between the two end up igniting a whole situation that they didn't thought would actually happen. Because Elena knows Maeve very well, and you have to keep in mind that they haven't seen each other for years. Even though Elena sees Maeve every day on TV, Maeve haven't seen Elena in years because they after that whole situation with Homelander, they parted ways. But Elena could kind of see that something was troubling Maeve, and she was worried for her. So she was just trying to figure out how to be there for her, how to make her understand that, hey, even though we are not back together, I still want you to not feel alone and not feel like you don't have anybody to count on. So in season 1 and season 2, Maeve rekindles her relationship with Elena, but is forced to keep hidden. She confesses that she stays closeted and acts completely, different from what she really is because she is terrified of Homelander jealousy nature. Homelander eventually uncovers the relationship and, outs Maeve's orientation on, national TV. And that is something that definitely bothered Maeve, not because she was outed, but she was more afraid of what Homelander can do to Elena once he finds her alone or, by the protection of Maeve. So that was her main concern. Obviously, later on, you can see that, Maeve's people around her that works with her was trying to incorporate, their relationship in this whole TV show that they wanted to do. But obviously, Elena ends up rejecting it because she doesn't feel comfortable being in the situation. All she wants to do is be with Maeve. She doesn't want all of the media. She doesn't want the money. She doesn't want none of it. She just wants to be with Maeve and not having all the and not having to deal with all the extras. So you can see that, the relationship between them was getting a little bit more complicated as they thought because, Maeve wanted to keep Elena close by her so she can protect her from Homelander. But obviously, Elena also didn't want to feel like she's trapped. She always has to be with Maeve just for her protection, but she also didn't want to leave Maeve alone. So there was a point, where she was just tired of everything, in this case, Elena, and she wanted to go back to her, if I'm not mistaken, to her mother's house, but obviously, Maeve ends up convincing her to stay, and that's exactly what she did. But the story actually ends up taking a very interesting turn because Elena breaks up with Maeve after she finds the footage of the Flight 37 plane crash. She was traumatized by the horror of Maeve and Homelander's, basically abandoning the passengers, and they actually end up passing away. Elena states she cannot stop thinking about the victims and leaves Maeve. But obviously Maeve she had her whole reason. She said she didn't have a choice. She wanted to do the right thing. She wanted to save the people. But Homelander, just because who he is and the control he has, she was also afraid for herself. So she actually ended up making that very bad decision that she regrets until this day. And she always cries about it because she feels like she could have done different. She feels guilty about it, because she knew she could have saved that people. But at that moment of time, when that whole situation of the plane happened, she was trapped and she didn't find it and she didn't have no other option. Obviously, Elena, she couldn't resist it, just seeing the footage and then seeing the explanation, and she just realizes how Homelander and Maeve's situation is too much. So she chose herself and she actually ends up leaving Maeve. Obviously, Maeve, she was heartbroken. Right immediately after they broke up, you can already see Maeve in bed with other men, just going wild, crying, being emotional, realizing that she lost Elena. Obviously, from that moment on, we didn't see nothing more of Elena. She just disappeared from the series. She just disappeared from basically everything that they were doing together. And you can just see how that definitely changes my views, how different the perspective and point of view of things, realizing that if she really wants to finally be free and just live her life to the fullest and just give her another chance to life, she will have to free herself from this whole situation that she has caught herself in when it comes to Homelander. And the only way she can be free and finally have her peace again is by figuring out a way on how to get away from Homelander, even though there's already what she was planning to do while she was with Elena, but now not being with Elena just gave her that extra power that she needed in order to get them in their position. So basically, during the epic season 3 finale, Maeve fights both Homelander and Soul Eater Boy, resulting in her losing her power, but surviving the whole situation. Following this, Maeve takes her, basically ends up pretending like she passed away so she can finally go live a free life with Elena, far away from everything and more of the story, so that she can just start over and just try to figure out how to start a free life. Finally, now that Homelander feels like she has passed away, finally, now she doesn't have her power, even though it's something that still bothers a little bit. But she understands that, it is what it is. Maybe that was the only way that she could have, broke free from everything that she was going through. So she loses her power. She goes to Elena to escape because she was very, very, very much harmed. So she goes and heals with Elena, keeping everything low key. Obviously, at this point, Homelander, all of them already feel like she had passed away. So she could just go ahead and escape. Then a friend came to visit her, basically saying goodbye and thanking her for everything. And finally, we can see that Sue just heading off to the happy, happy, happy end and just walking away, finally getting that final closure. Elena wanting to be with Maeve, Maeve finally being free from Homelander, and they could finally have their happy ever after that we all wanted them to have. Very good, very, very, very good couple. I feel like they came together very good. They were two different women who decided to give love another chance, but they knew that the only way that they could live their love to the fullest is by freeing themselves from something, that was, making their story impossible. If you guys haven't watched it, I would highly recommend it. Like I said at the beginning, it's not my cup of tea. The only reason I actually watched it was because of their story, but it's on Prime Video, and if you want to watch their story, is from season 1 to season 3, and if you want to watch the whole series, it's from season 1 to season 5. So go ahead, go watch, go support. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Until the next video, and goodbye.